Hi there, I'm Pastor Cliff Gleason, and I want to thank you for tuning in today to our worship service. Here at the Laconia Seventh-day Adventist Church, we worship Jesus Christ as our Creator, our Lord, our Savior, and our coming King. And we hope that you will enjoy this service with us, that you'll be inspired by the teaching and the music and every part of our service. So sit back and enjoy, and thank you for being with us today.
Well, good morning. Does anybody know what these are? Do you know what those are? These are called blueberry rakes. And if we're picking low bush blueberries, and what you do, you get down on your hands and knees, and you slide them into the blueberry bushes, and you lift a little bit. And what it does is the blueberries get caught between here, and when you lift, it picks them off the bush. And that's how we rake low bush blueberries. And then, but there's also, if you look in here, there's still some dried blueberries. Still see some, and some leaves. I guess I didn't wash that one very good. That one's okay. But that, which is a good thing that they're still in there, because then we have a machine. It's a big fan. It has a big fan on it, and it has belts that go around, and you dump the berries onto one belt, and it drops down onto another belt that's on an angle like this. And you have a big fan that's in the machine, and it blows all of the leaves out, and all the dried wizened up berries and the light berries, they all go up over the top, and all the good berries fall down into a bucket down at the bottom. But you know, you can pick blueberries pretty fast with these things. If you're just picking one at a time, it takes a long time to pick them. But when you have that sometimes each swipe you're coming up, you might be picking 50 to 100 berries rather than one. So, but I want to tell you. Oh, well these are for the berries that grow down low on the ground. And we have a place out behind our house that a friend of mine owns, and he lets us go and rake berries there. You know, the Bible tells us that whatever our hand finds to do it with all our might. But you know, there's also a thing that we also need to work together, don't we? Well, a bunch of my family members, like my sister and some of my nephews and my great nieces and nephews, we all got together 2 different evenings. We started about 6 o'clock, and we went till it was dark. So it was that's almost 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock. We did it 2 different evenings. And there was probably, the last time I think there was like 17 people there, but there were some little kids too. So like my great niece, who was 12 years old, she helped take care of the little ones. And we had a bunch of people raking, and we had other people at a table. We'd winnow the blueberries, we'd clean them, and they would go into buckets on the table, and the people at the table were packing them in gallon Ziploc bags ready to freeze. And there's an old saying that says, many hands make light work. That means if we all work together, it's easier. So how many gallons of blueberries do you think we got ready to freeze in two evenings? Lots is right. How many do you think? Not quite 200. More than 100. We got 132 gallons of blueberries. 132 gallons. That's a lot of blueberries.
That's more than 102 or 101.
That's right. But, but when we all work together, we can do really neat jobs like that. And you know what? We had fun doing it too. At the end of it, everyone's like, that was a good time. Then because of the situation, we're gonna go and we're gonna mow the fields. So we have a place to rake berries every year. And so we can all get together to do that. Well, here in the church, we have jobs to do too, right? One of the big jobs is spreading the word that Jesus is coming soon, right? And when we all work together, it goes much easier. And we can get a lot more accomplished. And you know what? We can have fun doing it too. Just like we were having a blast raking berries. We can have fun going out and telling about Jesus. And when we all work together, we can take and do a lot more working together than just going there with one person. If I went out there and did rake for 3 hours, I might have gotten 6 to 10 gallons of blueberries. But with everyone raking, one night we got 72 gallons. And then we got 60 gallons the next time.
200 gallons.
If we kept raking, we could have gotten more than 200 gallons. There's a lot more berries. But I think that was enough for us. Everyone's filled their freezers. And just like us filling our freezers, when we go out and we share about the good news of Jesus coming again, we're going to be filling heaven with other people. And that we could share it with them for eternity. So, before we go back to our seats, why don't we fold our hands and close our eyes? Dear Jesus, we just want to thank you so much for the bounty that you give us. Like the blueberries and the gardens and stuff. We just are so thankful. But, you're calling us to go out to help harvest people for your kingdom. And Lord, just like we were having a good time raking berries with a whole bunch of us, we can have a great time going out and sharing your good news, and that we can work together to take and bring people to you. Lord, we just thank you, and we just ask that you help us to do this, for we ask it in your name. Amen.
Our scripture this morning is from the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verses 17 and 18. Revelation 3, chapter 17 and 18. I'm reading from the Revised Version. Because thou sayest, I am rich, and have gotten riches, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art the wretched one, and the miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked. I counsel thee to buy of me gold refined by fire, that thou mayest become rich, and white garments, that thou mayest clothe thyself, and that the shame of thy nakedness not be manifest, and eye salve to anoint thine eyes, that thou mayest see. May the Lord add his blessing to the reading of the word, and we look forward to what Dan has to share with us.
Good morning. Most of the time, when I'm praying about sermons, the Lord gives me what I need to hear, not necessarily what the rest of people need to hear. So this study is a study that the Lord has been showing me some things. And then the study is called Blinded. And I want to start with a couple stories before I get into the scripture part of it. You know, a lot of us take our eyesight for granted. You know, Steve's not here today. You know, Steve went blind when he was a young man. But, you know, when something happens to our eyes, it's something that makes us stop and think for a minute. Quite a few years ago, I was working on a job, and you know, we didn't have a lot of all the safety things that most companies require now. Safety glasses, hearing protectors, dust masks, all that sort of stuff. That wasn't around. Or that was in the big commercial things that were made to have. But you know, most of us on the carpentry jobs didn't have those sorts of things. And we were getting ready to roof this building, and was cutting drip edge. And it was one of these ones that was kind of a crazy angle cut. And it was off like maybe 2 degrees or something like that, but it had to be right. So I've taken a set of nippers, and I'm nipping off this little triangular piece that probably the widest end was probably like 1/4 inch. And it was probably about 1.5 inches long or something like that, and it just went right down to a point. And you see it in slow motion when it happens. I hit it, and I cut that last little bit, and that thing flipped right up like this, and it went right into my eye. And I reached out and I pulled it out. Hit the white of my eye. And you just keep working. Well, the guy that I was working with, it was on a Friday afternoon actually, and the boss had gone to get the paychecks. And when he got back, the guy that I was working with told him what happened. And the boss told me, he says, I want you to go see this eye doctor, pick your tools up, go, you're on the clock until you're out of there. Well, I went, young guy, you just keep going. He goes, no, I want you to go, this has to be done. So I got there, and they looked at it, and it didn't do any major damage. You know, it was in the white part of my eye, and they said, but we want to be concerned about infection. So they gave me this stuff to put in my eye to keep the infection down. And everything was fine. But, you're thinking of those things now, and it's like, if it had been over a little bit, I would have lost my eyesight. Another thing that happened shortly before Kathy and I got married, again, working on a framing crew, and we're working on this, again, it was working on a roof, and there was a rafter there, and this big honking black ant was crawling up the rafter right in front of me. I whip out my hammer and I smacked it like that. Well, what ants have inside of them is formic acid. Formic acid reacts with protein. You're taking the experiments you do in high school you take a block of gelatin, you inject formic acid, and it swells up. But it also is the stuff that makes things sting and burn and stuff when you get bit. Well, all that stuff from the ant splattered right up into my eye. That one hurt. That one hurt, and it burned. And I went to the eye doctor and told him about my stupidity of doing it, and he gave me this stuff to put in my eyes, and it soothed it. Oh, it felt so much better. But because of the stuff that got in my eye, I had to wear an eye patch for a little while. Well, eye patches allow it so your depth perception doesn't work real well. And it was just before Kathy and I were getting married. Kathy was working on her wedding dress, and I was stitching my kilt for the wedding. Well, you have to line up in a weave of cloth. You have a warp and a waft. One goes one way, one goes the other way. And when you're pleating a kilt, you have to line up on that fold the warp and the weft on both pieces that you're stitching together. Otherwise, the pattern gets distorted. That's the word I'm looking for. When your depth perception isn't working, it didn't work real well. I had to tear out some stuff on that one. Whenever we have a problem with our sight, it handicaps us in ways. And the last thing about sight is when I went and got glasses, the eye doctor asked me, he says, "What makes you think you need glasses?" And I said, "Well, I'm tired of trombone reading, where I'm trying to focus things, and my arm was getting too short for it." And so he took and he looked at my eyes, and they're doing all this stuff, looking into the back and all this sort of stuff, and he says, "You have a genetic problem. He says it's the shape of your eye, and that's what causes this problem." He says, "Probably when you were young, you had better than 20/20 vision." Yep, I did. And he says, "And you're going to have it'll keep going downhill until you hit about 50 years old. Once you hit 50, it's just going to level off, and that's basically where you'll be the rest of your life." And that's what's happened. But he says it's a genetic problem. Something that I can't help. But with glasses, it's corrected. And, with my glasses, I have 20/20 vision. But when it comes, if I take my glasses off, you guys look awful fuzzy. Everything's blurry. So, let's again turn to Revelation chapter 3. And we're going to look at 17 and 18 again. "You say, I am rich. I have everything I want. I don't need a thing. And you don't realize that you are wretched, miserable, poor, and blind and naked. So I advise you to buy gold from me, gold that is purified by fire. Then you will be rich. And you buy white garments from me, so you will not be shamed by your nakedness. An ointment for your eyes, so you'll be able to see." I remember that putting those drops in my eyes when I burnt it with from the ant. How it soothed it, and I could see better. But we aren't talking physical blindness here. We're talking spiritual blindness. And there's many causes of spiritual blindness. And that's what I want to be touching on today. And I think God really points out some really interesting things. If we go to Isaiah chapter 6. Isaiah is being called as a prophet. in this. And he's taken in vision to the throne room of God. And he sees all these incredible things, and he realizes that he in his sinful state cannot stand in front of a holy God. And we'll pick it up in verse 5. It says, "And then I said, it's all over, I'm doomed. For I'm a sinful man and I have filthy lips, and live among a people with filthy lips. Yet I have seen the King, the Lord of heaven's armies." And God takes and hears that cry of Isaiah, and he has one of the seraphim take a coal off from the altar and touch his lips and heal him. Take his sins away. And then he hears God asking, "Whom shall I send as a messenger to this people? Who will go for us?" And Isaiah is so overwhelmed. I mean, his sins are forgiven. He's seen God. And he wants to reach out in appreciation to what's happened to him. And he says, "Here I am, send me." And God says, "Yes, go to this people. And this is what you're to say. Listen carefully, but don't understand. Watch closely, but learn nothing. Harden the hearts of this people. Plug their ears and shut their eyes. That way they will not see with their eyes, nor hear with their ears, nor understand with their hearts, and turn to me for healing." How would you like a commission like that? God told Isaiah, he says, "Go and tell these people," but they aren't going to see what you're saying. They aren't going to see it. They aren't going to hear it. And they aren't going to turn to me. And why won't they turn to me? What does the text say? What do they do? Their what? Their hearts are dull. They harden their hearts. So our blindness has to do with what? Our hearts. It's a heart issue. That heart issue can be caused by many things. I know that, this last week, Kathy mentioned about conflict. There's been some conflict. And when I'm drawn in and caught in the middle of those conflicts, I shut down. I can't deal with people. I can't deal with anything. It's like I shut down. And why? It's a heart issue. I don't trust God in these situations. How am I going to do this? There was a couple stressful things, that and another thing, and it was like, this week I shut down. I couldn't deal with anything. It's a heart issue. It's because I'm not trusting. How am I going to fix it? How am I going to fix it? I can't do this, so it's like I feel like a failure, and I can't fix it. Rather than turning to God and saying, "God, open my eyes that I can see you working, so I don't sleep. I struggle." It's that heart issue. Where am I? And it causes a blindness. It causes me so I don't see God. According to what God told Isaiah, that this blindness and deafness is caused by a heart issue. But we have to ask ourselves, where is our heart in these situations? And it's when we turn to Him that our eyes get opened, that our ears get unplugged. But you know, one of the things that I want to look at here is in the New Testament. And we see a whole bunch of things going on in this situation. It's in John chapter 18. To me, this is like one of the biggest blind spots in history. Jesus is in Gethsemane with his disciples, all except Judas at the beginning. And it's John 18. We're going to start with verse 1. And it says that after saying these things, Jesus crossed the Kindred Valley with his disciples and entered a grove of olive trees. Judas the betrayer knew this place because Jesus had often gone there with his disciples. The leading priests and Pharisees had given Judas a contingent of Roman soldiers and temple guards to accompany him. Now with blazing torches, lanterns, and weapons, they arrived at the olive grove. Jesus fully realized all that was going to happen to him, so he stepped forward to meet them. "Who are you looking for?" he asked. "Jesus, the Nazarene," they replied. "I am he," Jesus said. Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. As Jesus said, "I am he," they all drew back and fell to the ground. Once more, he asked them, "Who are you looking for?" And again they replied, "Jesus the Nazarene." Let's stop here for a minute. If you were going after some guy, and you had a whole group of people armed, and you go up and you say, and this guy says to you, "Who are you looking for?" And they say who it is, and he says, "I am he," and just his words threw you back on the ground, would you get up and go after him? I would have second thoughts myself. You know, here's this guy that just by saying the words, you're picking yourself up off the ground. And they take and they say, when he asks them, "So who are you looking for?" "Well, Jesus the Nazarene." They're still wanting to get him. Hatred blinds. And this was a thing of hatred. It was a hard issue. They didn't care that they just got thrown to the ground just by him speaking. They're still going to go after him. Irrational thinking. You know, so they come. They get up. They say that they're still looking for Jesus, and he says, "I told you I am he." Jesus said, "And since I am the one you want, let these others go." He did this to fulfill his own statement, "I did not lose one single one of those you have given me." Then Simon Peter. I love Simon Peter. I can relate to him a little bit. Well, probably a lot more than a little bit. You know, and he draws a sword. And he slashes off the right ear of Malchus, the high priest's slave. I don't understand one thing. How you slash off an ear. because of how I would be swinging the sword. I probably wouldn't be coming down. I would have been going crosswise. A friend of mine said, well, maybe an angel bumped the sword so he didn't do that. But and Jesus touches Malchus's ear and heals him. How many people do you know can do that? And they're still going after this guy. But I have a question. How many swords were there?
There's probably more than one, but there's only one specific mention.
Let's turn over to Luke. Luke 22. We're going to start in verse 35 and go to 38, and then we're going to skip a few verses, go 47 to 53. Jesus first, he predicts Peter's denial. And then right after that he says, when I sent you out to preach the good news, and you did not have money, a traveler's bag, or an extra pair of sandals, did you need anything? No, they replied. But now he said, take your money and your traveler's bag, and if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. For the time has come for this prophecy about me to be fulfilled. He was counted among the rebels. Yes, everything written about me by the prophets will come true. Lord, look! They replied, we have 2 swords among us. That's enough, he said. Now let's go down to 47. But even as Jesus said this, a crowd approached, led by Judas, one of the 12 disciples. Judas walked over to Jesus to greet him with a kiss. But Jesus said, Judas, would you betray the Son of Man with a kiss? When the other disciples saw what was about to happen, they exclaimed, Lord, should we fight? We have brought the swords. And one of them struck the high priest's slave, slashing off his right ear. But Jesus said, no more of this. And he touched the man's ear and healed him. Then Jesus spoke to the leading priests and the captains of the temple guard and the elders who had come for him. Am I a dangerous revolutionary, he asked, that you have come with swords and clubs to arrest me? Why didn't you arrest me in the temple? I was there every day. But this is your moment in the time when the power of darkness reigns. To me, the blindness there is incredible. But one of the things I like to do when I'm reading these things, and those sorts of things amaze me, I start to think, okay, how does it relate to me? And how many times have I seen God's working miracles and still be blind? More times than I want to remember. How many times do I deny His power? How many times do I deny Him in my life, working in my life? That sometimes when He speaks, it knocks me to the ground and I still get up and want to keep doing the same thing. That I see the miracles happening and still want to do my own foolish ways. And what does it all come from? It's a heart issue. Where is our hearts? Where is my heart in those situations? They were thrown to the ground. They saw miracles. They saw someone's ear get cut off and somebody just touching it and healed. I bet that when that was healed, I bet the ear was, he either put the ear back on, or when he touched it, another one grew. One of the two. All these miracles that were seen and experienced. But because of hatred, because of prejudice, they still wanted to kill him. The heart issue. Do we ever do the same? Because our heart, because of our hatred, because of our prejudice, because of past experiences in our lives that separate us from God, our choices that causes irrational thinking, rather than surrendering it to God and letting Him take control. Sometimes I feel like the people that Isaiah was sent to talk to. I stop my ears and I close my eyes so I don't hear and don't see. But if I take and just turn my heart to God and ask for healing, He will heal me. And I've seen Him do that. But I have to keep doing it over and over again. I want to close with Revelation chapter 3. To the church of Laodicea, I believe that this last church, in the prophetic churches, I believe that that is the time that we're living in. And so many times we want to use the lukewarmness as a crutch. Oh, well, we're in Laodicea, we're a lukewarm church. We're this, we're that. But you know, that's not the message to Laodicea. God shows that there's a problem and He gives a cure for it. So as we read it, it says, write this letter to the angel of the church of Laodicea. This is starting in verse 14 of chapter 3. This is the message from the one who is the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of God's new creation. I know all these things you do, that you are neither hot nor cold. I wish that you were one or the other. But since you are like lukewarm water, neither hot or cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. You say, I am rich and I have everything I want. I don't need a thing. And you don't realize that you are wretched and poor and miserable and blind and naked. So I advise you to buy from me gold that has been purified by fire, that you will be rich. Gold from God. He's given us gold all the time, isn't He? These words are gold. The treasure. And also buy white garments from me, that you will not be ashamed of your nakedness. That white raiment, the robe of Christ's righteousness. He paid the ultimate cost to give us that. We can't buy it. We have to accept that gift. An ointment for your eyes that you'll be able to see. God says He's going to heal us. Just like I remember going to that eye doctor and getting that stuff to put in my eyes, and the relief that I got. It's incredible. and it helped heal my eyes. The ointment. You know, when your eyes are bothering you, it hurts. You ever get a little speck of something in your eye? And it just irritates you and you can't do anything else? Well, spiritual blindness does the same thing. He says, I correct and discipline everyone I love. So be diligent and turn from your indifferences. And then he says, look. In order to look, you got to be able to see, right? So he's said that we have a problem, but now he's given us the ointment. He's given us the gold, the treasure. He's given us Christ's righteousness. He's corrected us and disciplined us because he loves us. Remember what it said in Isaiah? They needed to turn their hearts to God. Here it says, turn from your indifference. And he says, look, now that you're able to see, look, I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice, the ears are unstopped now, right? So the sight is back and the hearing is back, and we've turned our hearts to God. He says, if you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in and I will share a meal together as friends. Those who are victorious will sit with me on my throne, just as I was victorious and sat on my Father's throne. Anyone who has ears to hear must listen to the Spirit and understand what he is saying to the churches. He says it's a heart issue. And when your heart is right, guess what? You're able to see and hear, and you're able to become victorious. He says there's a problem before, you're not listening, you're not seeing, your heart isn't right. He says, but when you get that right, that heart issue right, everything else falls into place. And he says the promise is that I will share a meal with you. The marriage supper of the Lamb. And he says, you'll be sitting with me on my throne just as I'm sitting with my Father on his throne. He says, you'll share eternity with me. He says, but it starts here in the heart. And he says, I don't want you to remain blind. He said, I will give you the ointment. I will heal you, and I will share eternity with you.
Once again, I want to thank you for coming and worshiping with us through the media, and we're glad that you were able to enjoy this particular service. But we're hoping one day will come when soon you'll be able to come right to our facility. We're here at 241 Province Street in Laconia, and our services are on Saturday mornings at 11 o'clock for the worship service, 9:30 if you want to come earlier for the Bible study. You're always welcome. We'd love to have you come. And there's a special thing that happens on the second Saturday of every month. That's our fellowship meal. And we'd love for you to be able to be with us and to stay afterwards and enjoy the lunch with us. Now, you may also be inspired to want to study the Bible some more, and we do have different Bible study aids. We can provide something for you to study through the mail, or we can come to your home, or we can arrange a small group study here at the church. So be in contact with us, and we will be able to set up something that will meet your needs as best we can. Thank you again, and we look forward to meeting you. God bless you in every way.